Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Neurodiversity from the Inside Out, the future of our children. My name is Uzma, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this important conversation. Today, we'll be looking at the one thing that could change everything for you and your child. What if the most powerful change you could make as a parent isn't something you can buy or add to your to-do list? In this episode, we're peeling back the layers to uncover how caring for yourself and creating a calmer, healthier rhythm in your life can ripple into every part of your parenting and homeschooling. It's not about perfection. It's about starting with you and watching the transformation unfold for your family. To guide us through this conversation, we are incredibly fortunate to have with us Peggy Ployhar. Peggy is the founder and the CEO of SPED Homeschool, the main host of Empowering Homeschool Conversations, a popular live broadcast and podcast that addresses relevant issues related to homeschooling diverse learners, a breast cancer survivor, the owner of Eternal Aerial Arts, and an aerial arts instructor and performer. She and her husband, Doug, live in League City, Texas, and after 19 years of homeschooling, have now graduated all three of their children from their homeschooling. So well done. Well done. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome,
Thank you
Peggy.
for having me, Uzma. I am
We're honored. We're
glad to be
absolutely
here.
honored to have you here.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. This topic is very near and dear to my heart, as you know, my story and my bio leans into a little bit of that, and so I'm
Absolutely.
excited to talk about this with you.
Absolutely. And we honestly, we're equally excited because this topic is, again, very close to my heart too. I'm also a mother to a homeschooling child, well, 4 children, but I have a
Mhm.
neurodivergent child. And I see how important having these conversations are. And I'm honestly, I'm ready to start. So let's just dive right into our first question.
Sure.
For me, Peggy, what inspired you? Really, what inspired you to focus on self-care? Um, as a transformative, I guess, element in parenting and homeschooling.
Yeah, well, I left that out for a long time.
Wow.
And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020, when everything shut down around the world, I was in clinics and hospitals.
Wow.
Not the place you wanted to be because that's only where the people who had COVID were. So, yeah, that was a huge wake up call because I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was taking care of myself. From the outside, I looked healthy. That is what's crazy. I didn't have all of these conditions already, and yet internally there was a lot going on that I had no idea about. And so cancer was my wake up call that maybe you aren't taking care of yourself the way you think you are. And what does self care really look like? And so I spent that year reevaluating what I needed to do for myself, which I had put on the back burner because I was so focused on what needed to be done for my kids. And in the meantime, I was giving them an example of what not to do
Wow.
without saying anything, but just because of what I was doing. And so I'm going to share a lot from that experience, and also just the transformation that's happened in the last 5 years of my life, because I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary of being
Mhm.
cancer free. And and so I've learned a lot, and I feel healthier, better, and I now recognize things that I thought, were nothing, that were huge indicators that something was going wrong.
Wow. I mean, that's huge. And I think this topic is so important. And I'm honestly grateful for you to share this. It's a personal journey, it's your
Mhm.
personal, experience. But you coming out here in the open and sharing with our audience will honestly make a huge difference to many, many families out there. And I think
Yeah.
most times it's mothers that are the main carers and they take on such
Mhm.
a toll without saying anything. And like you've
Absolutely.
mentioned, the external was okay, it was the internal. So what do
Mhm.
we do? Please guide us. How can we
Yeah.
help ourselves?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that you are not invincible. I want to pull up a study because I think this is what really woke me up when I started looking at some of the things around parents who have children with extra needs. There was a study done in 2014, and the results of the study said that parents of children, especially mothers with children with intellectual disabilities or autism spectrum disorders, are twice likely to die um, from a variety of things. They were 40% more likely to die of cancer, 150 more percent likely to die of cardiovascular disease. This is compared to parents without a child with these conditions, and nearly 200% more likely to die from any other misadventure,
Wow.
whatever, everything else in the bucket. So I want you to think about that as a parent. We want to be there for our kids. And we think that doing all of these things for our kids is going to help their future. The greatest thing to help your child in their future is to be there, but you're not going to be there if you're not caring for yourself. And I think we need to hear that more often because we don't prioritize it. If we start giving priority to me because that is necessary, then you're going to see everything else fall in place.
Okay, my question here is how?
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 Exactly. Yes, I know. Well, you first have to realize what am I doing and what am I not doing? And a lot of times we think, like from my story, I'm doing fine. I'm taking my vitamins. I'm doing a little exercise here and there. I'm eating the foods I should be. I was eating grass-fed beef. I was doing all of this stuff that you would think the indicator was that's good stuff.
Yeah,
The only problem was is I didn't know what I needed. I didn't take the time to figure that out. I didn't realize that I was shallow breathing. I didn't realize that I wasn't sleeping enough. I didn't realize that I wasn't drinking enough water, that the minerals that I thought I was getting from certain things weren't what I was getting. So I started consulting with various experts and found out things about myself that I wouldn't have been able to figure out if I hadn't started taking advice from other people, like wise advice, instead of thinking that I knew what I was doing was right. Um, and sometimes that's not like medical professionals. I went to a lot of alternative health professionals as well. I just kind of really followed what other people said that was helpful to them, kind of pick and chose out of my faith-based. I prayed a lot and just went where I felt like there was peace in that.
yeah.
But I found out things like that my daughter was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in the process of this too, and realized that that's really what my underlying issue was. And so my connective tissue, I have a connective tissue disorder. And I also don't hold, another thing we found out through a lot of tests is my body doesn't hold potassium. And so I have to have stuff with potassium in it constantly. It's not something you can supplement very easily. It's in a lot of like health drinks that are electrolyte high. So I have to drink a lot of electrolytes just to keep that potassium in my body. Otherwise, um, I get low grade fevers. And those are things I was ignoring. I was ignoring that I have symptoms for POTS, which is a post arterial tachycardia syndrome, something I was actually hospitalized with when I was pregnant with my daughter, and never really investigated it very much, but then realized that that's also related to my potassium levels and also my EDS.
Um,
So it's this you have to be willing to go on a voyage of self-discovery,
yeah,
because like things that I've fixed and found out about myself are going to be very different for you. And allowing just people to talk into your life and taking the time to say, I need some guidance. I need some professional, help navigating what's good for me. I ended up going on a vegan diet. For a lot of people, that is not the answer. But for me, because my body is highly sensitive to hormones, going off of meat was really important because that was not exposing me to a lot of additional hormones. Even though they were, from animals that were raised in a healthy environment, it still wasn't what I needed. But for another person, they may do better on a diet that has meat in it. So, um, but there are factors that then are across the board of what we all need. Um, for instance, we all need to sleep. And that is something that a lot of us moms who have kids with special needs or extra needs, we don't allow ourselves to have. And that will affect your hormones. It's going to affect your weight loss. You will actually hold on to more weight if you don't sleep enough. It will cause you to age faster. These are all things we don't want. It's also going to cause a lot of stress hormones to build in your body, and stress hormones lead to a lot of diseases that are preventable, like heart diseases and cancers and other things like that. That cortisol level, we can control through exercise, but we can also control it through sleep, and our body needs both. So, prioritizing that sleep, realizing everything is not going to get done, whether you are really good at keeping schedules or not, you still are not going to complete everything in the world that needs to be done. You're going to have to sleep with things undone, and that has taken me a long time to be able to come to that reality. That even if I stay up a half an hour later, it's buying time and from my future,
Wow.
and it's not helping me in the now. I do it, and when you're well rested, you actually do things faster and better. So go to sleep.
That's pretty deep, Peggy. My question here was, well, we don't have enough time to do all the tasks for our children, especially a
Yeah,
child who has additional needs, right? We're always trying
right.
to figure out what to do next, how to
Mhm,
support them, um, with the academics, for example, the emotional development, the behavioral
right.
development. We're
Mhm,
forever trying to figure out how to support them. How do we even have the slightest amount of time for us,
yeah,
without feeling guilty? So you've
mhm,
mentioned sleep, you've mentioned taking, watching your diet, for example, resting, um,
mhm.
but that takes time.
It
And
does.
then if we're
It
so limited in our day and we have our child with additional needs, for example, and others,
Mhm,
other children, siblings, what
right,
do we do? How do
right.
we even make ourselves come as a priority?
So you have to put yourself on the schedule, and your kids need to see you giving yourself priority, and that's not a selfish thing. Your kids are actually learning life skills by watching you prioritize themselves. They're going to see and they're going to learn that I matter because mom is saying that she matters.
Mm,
And that's tough because our kids are very demanding, but they need to see that through example instead of us killing ourselves in the process of trying to take care of them. So it's a lot about saying no. No to things, no to maybe something that's good. I was just talking with a young gal that I've been mentoring lately, and I said, there's lots of good things, but there's few best things. And we have to find those best things and say no to the good things. And
mm,
so, yeah, because in the end, those good things sometimes just add up to nothing. And we've been following rabbit trails that somebody said, "Oh, this worked good in my life," or "That worked good." Um, but it doesn't mean that's gonna work well in yours. And so do what is best. Prioritize those things, and everything else falls into place or will have its own time.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's
And I
yeah,
think
it's
that's,
hard.
yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And I think that that's work in itself, and I think
Mhm.
that's
It
more
is.
the mindset shift, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
truly is. Mhm.
because we're not
Yeah.
we're not programmed to do that. Mothers
No.
aren't meant to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we wanna care for everybody else, but, over and over again, we hear this, "Put the oxygen mask on yourself," and then we don't
Yeah.
quite know how to do that. Well, it just means that when you are meeting all these needs for your kids, where are you in the day? Okay, so then can you take a couple of those moments throughout the day to book an appointment for yourself, to maybe have one appointment a month. Just look at your schedule. How much is consumed with your kids and what percentage is yours? And sometimes it's really simple too. I just found even when I was homeschooling, I did a lot of things for my kids to teach them. But sometimes I picked a read out loud book that I wanted to hear because
Mm,
it filled me. And my kids were around, or if it was an audiobook in the car, it wasn't something they couldn't listen to, so they just listened to it along with me. But it was filling me. And so sometimes I just had to pick things that I needed, instead of just saying, well, they need this and they need that and that and that. And so, but sometimes we can fill those needs at the same time, and overlap them. But sometimes going on an appointment by yourself, it's important too, because then you're going to be able to actually ask your doctor the things that you need to ask without interruption,
yeah.
and without feeling like you're under a lot of pressure. Um, but again, that takes a support network as well, which we need to build anyways for ourselves. We think we can do this all on our own. We can't. We need other people, and we need to ask for help. And that's sometimes really hard too. So it is a process. It's a process of building a community, a process of reprioritizing your time, and a process of saying, I matter. And in the long run, this is actually the best thing that I can do for my child, is to take care of myself. I want to be there. I want to be
Mm,
there when they are an adult. I want to be there when they have those questions instead of not being there.
yeah. Yeah. And I think putting it that way, is scary, and
Yeah.
it's logical. It makes sense. We should we should do it.
Mhm.
We should be able to do it. But it again comes to back to that question about the mindset. How can we really play that important role and work on our own mindset first and prioritize us as number one
Right.
and then move on?
Yeah. I found for me, I need a very crazy planner.
Yeah. Good. Good. I
Um,
like that.
and when I sit down with that planner, I look, and actually my planner even asks, at the beginning of the week, what are your personal goals?
Ooh, I like
Everything
that.
else, we've got other categories like work and family and all those things, but then there's me.
Mhm.
And and then it makes me reevaluate at the end of the week. Which one of those did I do, and which one of those did I ignore and not do every day of the week? And am I getting better? So don't beat yourself up because you don't do it right the first time. You're not going to. This
Yeah.
is it's a shift, like you said, Uzma. You really need to integrate these things into your life, and it's not gonna happen overnight, and you
Mhm.
you are gonna get maybe one thing right, a few days here and
Yeah.
there. You have to build new habits, you have to change how you view things, and also how you view yourself, because there's a lot of times where I can just check out. I'm not even, like, I'm a body in this room, but I'm not, really here. I'm just like automated and going through life, trying to just put out fires or whatever. But that that's not it's not how we were meant to exist.
No,
We're meant to be in relationship, to be able to pause, to stop for things, to enjoy things. And we can't do that when we have checked out mentally, physically, emotionally.
because we're just
Yep.
exhausted by
Right.
giving all the time. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm just
Mhm.
thinking when we homeschool and we sit down and we plan the academic year, for example, how often
Yeah.
do mothers, for example, we have, 2, 3 children when we're homeschooling. We plan the year
Right.
for those children. When do
Yeah,
we
we
put
do.
our name in the schedule, in the planner? We might
Right.
set goals for every child for the year,
Uh-huh.
which I do every year. I sit down, plan the
Mhm.
activities, the subjects, the topics. So we're doing the academic planning for the year.
Yeah. Mhm.
But do we ever put our names on the planner?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you need to put your name on that planner.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
learning right alongside them, and you're growing and you're changing. I mean, just to think of how much I changed in my 19 years of homeschooling. I'm a completely different person than how I started. Um, and if I had even been more strategic in taking advantage of that for my own self-discovery and education, I think it would have been even more transformational.
Yeah,
But yeah, a lot of it happened through accident.
yeah,
Sometimes physically, to make you just slow down.
yeah.
But yes, that is a very good point. We do need to build that out for ourselves.
And it just and I think it doesn't just take that one person, the parent, the carer. It takes that village. And I always say
Yeah.
it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes
Mhm.
even bigger village to raise our special needs children, right? So if we're trying to
Absolutely.
find this bigger village, how do we even find it when we're too shy to ask for help?
So you have a lot of contacts in your life, whether it's through doctors,
Mm,
clubs, organizations your kids go to. Start
mm,
asking them, where are support networks you know about? Where are people that could that offer like just services, clubs?
mm.
The more connections you make, the more support you get. The
Agree.
more you say, "I'm looking for help," the more they'll people say, "Oh, well, I've got something that can help you." But if we
Mhm,
don't say we're looking, nobody's gonna share with us. A lot of times I find I don't share things with people unless I see that they're open to receiving.
yeah.
Because otherwise, if I have a great way to improve your health, and somebody's like, "Well, I'm going to my doctor and I'm taking all these medications and I'm doing great," and I'm like, I'm not going to give them an alternative method because they're going to look at me like, "You crazy lady,"
Mm,
and not receive that. And so yes, we have to say, "I'm open. I'm wanting. I'm looking. I'm needing to receive." And just keep asking those questions. There are people who know about things that either they're just don't think you're open to it, to receiving it, or it's off their radar to even talk to it about with it about you to you, because it's just something that's not come up in a conversation. So
yeah.
ask, ask, ask as much as you
Not
can.
yeah, not to be shy about it, because going back to your study, it's
Yeah.
quite scary. The
Absolutely.
statistics are, I mean, if we could just read those statistics and understand how, how much we have
Yeah,
to ask for help and how much we have to
we
look
do.
after ourselves, that,
Hmm.
should be the first thing actually. And how can we balance it, right? How can parents balance self-care with the demands of homeschooling? And then on top of
Yeah.
that, we have the challenges that we, come with anyway with our
Right.
child who has the learning, I
Hmm.
guess the additional needs and the learning challenges. So how do we fit it in, I guess, and how
Right.
without guilt, you know?
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
big thing.
Yeah, the things that I did with my kids is I did set those goals like you were talking about. Those goals prioritized what needed to be done, and then
Mhm.
everything else was what should be done. So that made a
Mm.
huge difference. I also built in buffer days because I knew I always got behind. And so there were days that I didn't plan anything, that I could put the things in that didn't get done when I
Okay.
felt like we are getting way behind. And when my kids were younger, those buffer days were more frequent because, of course, the interruptions were more often. There were some
Makes
days
sense.
I was only working on making sure my kids didn't kill each other.
Yeah.
And so school
Makes
just
sense.
didn't get done. Yes. And so, yes, I am going to put off the reading, writing, math because family relationships matter more.
Yeah.
And then we have that day. I didn't feel anxious or feel like, oh no, we got to do school over the weekend, and or there's no days off, and or you're going to have to work extra hard today before you're allowed to go outside. That all went away. And that, of course, takes the stress level down in the home too, when you are not over planning, over scheduling, and doing all those things. Those also were the days that I scheduled, our appointments. So if we had doctor's appointments, if we were, doing field trips, those were the days I had open for those things, if we could fit them on those days. And so that took that stress level down a lot. And also, if something came up during the day that, like, blew everything else out of the water, I looked at my goals for each child and said, "Okay, so that means that this needs to be done and this needs to be done today. The rest can go away, because those are our goals for the year. Everything else is an extra." And so it allowed me to very easily pick and choose what we were gonna focus on when we only had a little bit of time. And so then I didn't feel, like, super guilty about dropping everything else.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, like prioritization in the
Mhm.
day and then the guilt because we often compare ourselves to the schooling system as homeschooling
Yes.
mothers as well. That's another one, right? That's another
Yeah,
topic
absolutely.
of discussion. So that guilt, so we have guilt anyway because we want to be taking care of our children over
Mhm.
ourselves. And then we have this guilt of did we even tick the boxes or did we tick enough boxes for the day for their
Right.
learning?
Mhm.
Oh my God, the school's doing X, Y, and Z. Are we doing enough for our children at home? So we have layers and layers and layers of, questions, constant questions coming
And places
at
that just
us,
build guilt upon guilt upon
and then
guilt.
it's guilt upon guilt upon guilt.
Yeah.
I mean, that in itself is going to be detrimental if we don't stop or slow down.
Yeah.
So really for me, I think the biggest I mean, I've learned a lot in today's conversation.
Mhm.
Um, for me, the question for our audience is really how to avoid feeling that guilt. And
Yeah.
I know you've mentioned it, but how to just that one sentence to say, "Look, guys, don't feel guilty when it comes
Mhm.
to not ticking the boxes for the day," for example. Not, well, giving yourself some time as well,
Yeah.
and just recognizing yourself and loving yourself.
Mhm.
So what's that one
Absolutely.
sentence for the viewers today?
Oh, that's hard to put into one sentence. Is, just, life is a journey, and it's taken one step at a time, not
Yeah,
in huge leaps, but often in just a step in the right direction. If you have your sights in the right direction and you're going a slow path, you will get there. But if you're running crazily in every other direction, you will not get to the finish line.
yeah, yeah, and I love that. I love that. If we're running, there'll be lots of chances or possibilities of us falling because
Right.
sickness, exhaustion,
Mhm.
lack of sleep, whatever it may be,
Right.
we possibly may not even get to that finish line. But if we slow
Exactly.
down,
Mhm.
look after ourselves, our family, prioritize, put ourselves in that schedule, put our name on that schedule, and set goals for
Yeah.
ourselves, we'll get
Mhm.
there. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so
But
much. Honestly, Peggy, we could talk about this forever because I honestly feel this topic is not discussed enough. And this is why
Mhm.
when I met you and I said, Peggy, we need to talk about this. We need to actually
Yes.
discuss this for our viewers to watch and listen and benefit from because this is a topic that is not discussed. It's a
Mhm.
topic where we don't often ask for help and we shy away because we think we can do it ourselves. But when the damage is done, and in your case, it
Right.
was the cancer. The cancer scare was,
Mhm.
I mean, that is everybody's nightmare,
Right. It is,
you
definitely, and
know?
I was so thankful that my cancer was contained. I had not spread. It was a gift, definitely, and a
Wow,
gift that I have to talk about because, it was a warning sign that, we are all not invincible.
absolutely.
And we can think that we are, but when something like that happens, that's you have to drop everything. There's nothing you can do. Your life becomes totally rescheduled by everybody else.
Yeah,
And that's when you have to take the time.
yeah,
So why not take the time ahead when you can and when you can build it in and when it's healthy for your
yeah,
kids and your family instead of
yeah,
in the end when you don't, you have no other choice.
I agree. And that's strong. What you've said is really powerful. And, I'm really hoping and praying that this makes an impact.
Mm.
And many families, can benefit from this because I'm taking away a lot today. You're right. There's not when you're sick and you don't have your health, then nothing gets done anyway. So why not do it when you're
Yep.
healthy?
Mhm.
And this is the one message I think is enough for our audience today. And I really hope and
Yeah.
pray that they do take away, something from our conversation, and they look after themselves. And
Yeah.
let's be that village. Let's be that. Reach out to us. Reach out to Peggy. Reach out to me, and
Mhm.
let's create that village. And let's be together in this,
Absolutely.
because we all need help. And let's not shy away from asking for help. 2025 mission. I'm going to ask for more help.
Yeah.
Definitely. So
Love
thank you
that.
so much, Peggy. Thank you for sharing your
Absolutely.
insights today with us. It's been wonderful. Your experience and your expertise really are, invaluable to our
Thank
listeners.
you.
And thanks for everything, really. Thanks for your time,
Mhm.
and you're sharing your journey with us. And we just look forward to exploring more topics with you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Look
you.
after yourself. Bye.
Bye.